Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, I'm sharing 4 easy handmade cards using the July 2026 card kit from Love from Lizi. This is called Sunshine Rodeo. So it's got a rodeo ranch cowboy country theme to it. So much fun to create with. And the great thing about kits like this is they have a good amount of product in them. So you can create a ton of cards. The only thing you'd actually really need to add to this is more card bases. There are some solid cardstock pieces, but not enough to do a ton of different card bases. And I tend to use those solid cardstock pieces for different layers on my cards. We have an embellishment pack that has several different types of ribbon with it. I tend not to use a lot of thick ribbon when I'm card making, but these would be fabulous if you love doing mixed media projects or junk journal type things. Those would be perfect for that. We have a package of gold charms. There's like a cowboy hat, a cowboy boot, as well as a horseshoe with a clover. Then there is a little sticker sheet, as well as 2 different dies, one for a fence and one for a leaf cluster. Another pack of charms. These ones have some colors to them, as well as some bright yellow, which coordinates with the sunflowers that are in a lot of the printed papers, as well as the printed die cuts. There's always a package of pre-printed die cuts that perfectly coordinate with those pre-printed papers. And again, these are all that Sunshine Rodeo theme. So for this video, I'm concentrating on those pre-printed die cuts that have sunflowers on them. I'm going to be making 4 cards with those. I did a video on the Love from Lizi channel. I'll link it in my description. And those focus on some of the other pre-printed die cuts as well as some of the printed papers. So if you're looking for more inspiration, they have a bunch on their channel as well as the video that I added there. We have the 6-inch paper pack that has, again, perfect prints for the backgrounds of cards, and that's what I typically use those prints for. And then they coordinate perfectly with those pre-printed die cuts. There's a stamp set here. I'm going to be using them mostly for the sentiments in the stamp set, but I'm also going to be using that little door that I don't even know exactly what it would be called. There is also a sheet of peel-off stickers and then several different solid cardstock pieces. So like I said before, I'm going to be using those solid cardstock pieces for the layers on my cards. I have some A2 card bases from my stash that I'm going to be using for my bases. We have a piece of cow print fabric, a piece of faux leather, as well as a piece of cork. Now I don't use those in this video, but I did use the cork to die cut the fence die cut in my Love from Lizi video, so that you'll see that on there, and it die cuts really quickly or really easily and really beautifully, and it has adhesive on the back as well, so super easy to use. I have a few add-on bits here, some specialty cardstocks as well as peel off sticker sheets, and I will be using one of the add-on kits for the peel off sticker sheets. I love the lines of the peel off sticker sheets, so I'm going to be using that on one of my cards to do a bit of a border around it. I used my stamp set on my Love from Lizi video, so I don't need to use the white eraser on the stamping surface. However, if your stamp set is new and you want it to take ink just a little bit better right off the start, a white eraser on the stamping surface works to take off any possible manufacturing residue, and then just use a soft brush to remove any eraser bits, and your stamp set is good to go. And that only needs to be done the very first time you open up the set. You don't need to do that every single time. So for this video, I do have my stitched arch die set that I'm using for my layers. I always love using a set of nesting dies for added layers on my cards for just a little bit of interest. Sometimes just rectangles gets a little bit boring, so adding a shape adds a little bit of interest to that. So my layers for this card are using that stitched arch die set. I have a piece of white cardstock here that I'm going to be using the stamp set sentiments on. I'm going to heat emboss them with some copper rose embossing powder. This is from Love from Lizi, and again, I wanted to coordinate with the colors in the cardstock, so I thought the copper rose did that nicely, as well as adding a little bit of a metallic touch and a bit of texture. I typically love doing heat embossing for my sentiments simply because it adds that extra little bit of texture that just plain stamp or color ink doesn't. But if you don't necessarily like that texture, you can easily just use a color ink to stamp those sentiments in whatever color you're wanting to pull from those printed papers, and that will work perfectly as well. I'm using my trimmer to trim those down, and I have a clear guard on my trimmer there that I use to kind of guide myself on making sure those sentiments are trimmed nice and evenly. I'll do the one side and then I'll do the opposite side, and then I do the 2 ends. It works perfectly, and I always like to trim all of my sentiments at once so they're ready to go while I'm card making. I always like to do the pre-prep first, and then when I'm card making, I'm basically just assembling everything together without having to stop and make a sentiment here or there. For this card, I have some printed paper that I trimmed to 4 inches by 5¼ inches. I have a larger stitched arch from the brown cardstock from the kit that I used, as well as some of the white cardstock with a smaller stitched arch so that we have a nice frame around it. This is the one that I stamped that little gate, that little door on, and I'm using a skull with sunflowers for the pre-printed die cut from the kit. Now again, I wanted to add a little bit more texture, so on the centers of the sunflowers for my die cuts for these cards, I'm adding some copper rose glitter gel or Stickles glitter gel. It's going to coordinate perfectly with those embossed sentiments, and it's also going to add that little bit of texture. Another option would be just an iridescent one so that you still see the brown color from that pre-printed die cut. But I thought adding a little bit of that copper rose in the centers of those sunflowers coordinated nicely with those sentiments and added that texture as well as that metallic touch. For the second card, I have a different printed paper that I trimmed to 4 inches by 5¼ inches, adding those 2 arches to the center. And for this card, as well as some of the pre-printed die cuts, I chose to use the leaf sprig die that is in the kit with the hunter green paper that is in the kit, and do some greenery to go behind my pre-printed die cut. Now I chose the same color that I used as my mat. If you wanted it to be a different color, you could either choose a different color for your mat or choose a different color of cardstock. The other green that's in the kit is more of a minty green, and personally I just didn't like that for this card against that pre-printed paper, so I opted to just do the hunter green with it because I just like the color a lot better for the card that I was creating and to coordinate with those die cuts. Once again, adding the copper rose glitter gel in the center of those poinsettias just to give them that extra little bit of texture and extra little bit of sparkle. Sometimes when you're using printed papers or pre-printed die cuts, it can get a little bit flat because sometimes it doesn't have, like sometimes you get some that have foiling on them, but often it's just ink. So it's a little bit, it's got a matte finish, it's got a little bit of a flat look to it. So I always love different ways of adding a little bit of extra texture. For this next card, I chose to use that smaller arch piece, kind of rub the edges of the ink in the embossing ink, and then put that copper rose embossing powder around the outside edges. This is a fun way to line different die cuts in a different way. It has a bit of a rustic look to it because those lines are not completely even all the way around. You'll see some areas are thicker, some areas are thinner. For some themes, like a rodeo or a country theme, it works absolutely perfect because it suits that rustic look. And there's other themes for card making that it really doesn't look well for because of that rustic look to it. But it is one that just is, it adds that hint of metallic that is unexpected. So I have a piece of pre-printed paper here that I trimmed to 4 inches by 5¼ inches and put it on my A2 card base. I'm using one of the, or some of the thin peel off line stickers from the add-on pack. This is the dark brown sheet from that pack. I'm using the thinnest line, which is really just a gold color, but you could use a thicker one if you wanted to see some of that dark brown color. I'm going about 1/16 of an inch from the edge of that pre-printed cardstock, putting that peel off sticker or peel off line down, and then using my sticker or scissors to trim that down. And I'm doing this one on all 4 edges. These peel off sticker lines are great. You can do them in curves as well. I've also done cards in the past where I've done it around an arch die cut and it looks fantastic. They're repositionable initially, and then once you get them down, they become permanent. So they're really easy to use because if you get it somewhere where you don't exactly want it, you can lift it up and then correct that. Once I have my peel-offs down, I can add my arch layers to the front of the card. So for this one, I have so many more of those pre-printed die cuts. I have 3 different large sunflowers as well as some greenery. just creating a cluster of florals towards the bottom left of that arch. And I'm almost filling the arch with it. I just love the look of floral arrangements on cards. And because this pack has a bunch of different greenery pieces as well as those sunflowers, I thought it would be fun to create that look with these pre-printed die cuts. Now there's also some pre-printed die cuts that have some smaller clusters to it. I have one to the side there that I'll just place on top of my arrangement once I'm done, but it doesn't really suit it, so I don't actually put that one on. I think this particular one suits the larger flowers a little bit better. Once I have that arrangement done, I grab my sentiment and add that to the top part of that arch. You could put it over the florals as well if you wanted, but I thought over the white area, it doesn't really cover anything, so it just doesn't cover those florals. Once again, I'm going to add the Copper Rose glitter gel to the center of those florals. Now for this video, I don't wait for them to dry until the end of the video. So when you're seeing it right after I'm putting it on, it has a little bit of a different look from once it's dry. Once it's dry, we have that glue that's reduced. So we see more of the sparkle and more of the texture, and you'll see that at the end. For this last card here, I'm once again putting the embossing ink around the outside edges, then dipping this arch into that Copper Rose embossing powder, using my heat tool to heat that powder up around all of those edges. And for this one, I'm going to take some brown ink from my stash, and I'm just going to do some simple ink blending around those outside edges. I'm choosing to do a very light amount for the look that I want on this card, but you could be heavier if you want to. It's really just a personal preference thing depending on the look that you're going for. For this card, I have a pre-printed die cut that has some cowboy boots with the sunflowers, so I thought it would be nice to have that little bit of ink blending in the background. My printed paper here is trimmed to 4 inches by 5¼ inches, and then I'm going to add my 2 arches. Now for the 4 cards for this video, I chose to do my printed papers all 4 inches by 5¼ inches. If you preferred, you could make them just a little bit smaller and use a solid cardstock to mat around the outside of that as well. Because all of the cardstocks that I used were darker cardstocks against the white card base, I just really liked the look of it for this. It just depends on, again, I go by what mood I'm in and the look that I'm going for. So I opted to do it this way for this one, but you could easily just change it up and frame those printed papers if you wanted. To finish this card up and add a little bit of extra metallic to it, I used the horseshoe charm from one of the charm packs in the kit. It is really adorable. It has that horseshoe, but it also has a 4-leaf clover in it, and then added the glitter gel to the center of those poinsettias. So you can see adding that glitter gel to the center of the poinsettias not only adds that metallic, but it also adds that sparkle. It adds that dimension to the florals, and it really takes your eye and focuses it on the pre-printed die cut images. I didn't put it on any of the background printed papers. You obviously could if you wanted, but I really wanted the focus to be on those die cuts and on the images in the centers of the cards. I have the kit as well as any add-ons that I've used listed and linked down in the description box below. So if you're wondering about that, you can find that information there. I absolutely love creating cards from card kits because they're just a fun way to create. Everything coordinates together, and especially a kit like this, you get some unexpected items that are just fun to find out and figure out how to create with them and how to incorporate them in your creating. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate all the time that you spend with me. I hope you have a fantastic day.